Uh, Hello everyone, we'll be starting briefly. We're just doing a quick sound check on our live stream. Please bear with us. Anisha. Hello Jennifer. Good afternoon. Good afternoon everyone. We're still waiting for a few people.
Yeah.
Hello. Yeah,
Have the
we're just
speakers joined us?
the speakers have joined. We are just doing a little bit of a sound check on the live stream because there seems to be some audio issue. So Gaurav sir has just asked us to do a bit of a check.
All right, no problem. And who over here?
Hi everyone. Hello.
Hi, Dolly.
Hi, Jennifer.
Hi, Oshiji. You can switch on your camera. I can see you.
Yeah, hello.
Hi, how
Hello.
Hi.
I think Dr. Tobias Toll is also here. I saw
is
his.
he? Okay.
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah,
Hi.
okay.
Hello, sir.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, Sandhya.
Hi,
Hi, Sandhya.
hi, Dolly. Hi, Tobias.
Hello.
I think we've started 12:40. So till then we can just hope that our students joined.
And I think we need to wait for Sister Rosalie also to join.
Put in a
Did you
reminder,
text her? You did? Take it.
and I can call her again. Let's see.
I think 12:40. Hopefully she'll join. Otherwise.
Hi, Samira. What is that background which looks good? Hi, Anisha.
Hello.
So, Professor Tobias and Dr. Tobias and Dr. Shajit, we've been working around this. So, Dolly Kapoor is the HOD, and ELA is being run by Samira and Anisha, who are visible on the screen. I am Jennifer, and Sandhya is also here. And we are hoping the rest of the faculty joins quickly. And we're waiting for the principal, and then we start immediately. Thanks for coming, all of you.
Please let me know when sister joins, because then I'll just
Dolly,
immediately start.
you need to unmute.
Sorry. I was just telling Samira that I tried that background one time, but but half my hair disappeared, so I came back to my normal one.
I don't even try. All right.
Hi, Tanuja. Good to have you here.
Hi.
We have faculty from Political Science Department, Tanuja Sachdev, also joining us.
Hello.
Good afternoon, Tanuja ma'am.
Dolly, do you want me to put in one more reminder or something?
I think just call Sister Rosalie and ask her to join, and then we can begin, and I can text Dr. Samira also then.
Hi Samira, hi Anisha.
Hello, Kashish.
Hi.
Good morning, everyone. Hi, Samira.
Good morning, good afternoon, Manika. Hello.
Good afternoon. Hi. Thank you.
Sister Rosalie is just going to join. Has sister joined?
I don't think I see her name.
She just said that she's joined.
Can't see her name.
Yeah, when she joins, I think
Okay.
I'll get the ping to admit her.
Samira, she
I
just
think
called
just,
me.
just a couple of seconds.
Yes,
No, no,
Jennifer.
she just called me. She can't open that link, so I'm resending the link to her right now.
Okay. You want me to resend the meet link?
No, I have it.
Okay.
Yeah, she's checked it. She must be joining. Is it the same link for today and tomorrow, or
Yeah, same link, same link, same link. We've all been sisters here.
sisters here?
Okay. Good afternoon, sister.
Hello, sister. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sister.
Let me just begin. We can begin. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the lecture series organized by the English Literary Association, Department of English, Jesus and Mary College. The theme for today's session is Modernity and Society, and we have two eminent speakers with us, Dr. Tobias Stoll and Dr. Asijit Datta, who shall be dealing with different aspects of the same. To quickly start things off, I'd like to invite our teacher in charge, Ms. Dolly Kapoor, to say a few words. Dolly, ma'am.
Thank you, Samira. So, on behalf of the Department of English, I extend a very warm welcome to all who are present here today for the first day of our lecture series, which is being hosted by the English Literary Association of the department on the 7th and 8th of April. I would also especially like to welcome our two very distinguished and esteemed speakers, Dr. Tobias Stoll and Dr. Asijit Datta, who will be engaging with different aspects of the theme. As Samira has mentioned, the theme for today's session is modernity and society. We are also very happy to have with us. I think she will join very soon because she is a little busy, but she did tell me that she will come in for a few minutes. That is, I'm talking about our principal, Dr. Sandra Joseph. So I'm hoping she'll be able to join us and also, address the gathering briefly. But we're also happy to have with us Sister Dr. Rosalie, who I will now request to start the proceedings of the day by invoking the blessings of the Almighty with a short prayer. Dr. Sandra has also joined us. We can start if Sister Rosalie will initiate the proceedings with the prayer. Thank you, Sister Rosalie.
Almighty God, Father in heaven, we have gathered in your presence for your blessing. We thank you, Lord, for the gift of our staff and students, very especially the Department of English. Bless each one of us, our families, keep us safe from all harm and dangers. Keep us in your protection and love. We also thank today our speakers. Lord, send your spirit upon them, guide and direct them so that our students and our staff will be enlightened. O Lord, send your spirit, Holy Spirit upon each one of us so that we may do everything pleasing to you. Guide each one of us, our thoughts, our words, and our actions, so that we may give quality education to our students and in turn contribute in building up of our society and make this world a better place for everyone. We make this prayer through Christ our Lord. Amen.
Thank you so much, Sister Rosalie. I would now like to request our principal, Dr. Sandra Joseph, to address the gathering and say a few words of encouragement to all of us. Dr. Sandra Joseph.
Thank you, Dr. Dolly. Am I audible? All right.
Yes, ma'am.
So good afternoon to all. And at the beginning, congratulate the English Literary Association of the Department of English for this, for putting together this very valuable 2-day lecture series on modernity and society and contemporary and culture. On behalf of Jesus and Mary College, let me welcome our speakers. Thank them for being with us today, Dr. Tobias Toll and Dr. Asijit Datta, for consenting to be the speakers for today. I'm very sure that you're going to have a very enriching session, and I'm sure their sharing of knowledge and information will enhance our students' perspectives and widen our mindsets and give us a new understanding of what society is today. Let me wish the Literary Association the very best and a fruitful session this afternoon. Once again, congratulations to Ms. Dolly Kapoor and her faculty and students for putting together this lecture series. I know it's a lot of hard work coordinating, especially an online program. So good, keep it up, and all the very best to each one of you. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. I'll just hand over to Samira now to take us through the rest of the program. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Principal ma'am, for her encouragement. I would now like to request one of our core team members, Vanshika, who shall be introducing our first speaker, Dr. Tobias Toll. Vanshika.
Dr. Tobias Toll is an assistant professor at the Department of Physics at the Indian Institute of Technology, Delhi. He researches the constituents of matter revealed in high-energy particle collisions. In addition to courses on theoretical physics, his teaching also relates to the history and philosophy of science and modernity. We welcome you, sir.
Tobias, your mic is off.
So shall I start? I'm going to show some slides. So do you see this now?
Yes, it's visible.
Yes, it's visible.
Okay. So if I change now, you see the next slide?
Yes.
Yes, okay, very good. So let's go to full screen and then I start. Okay, so I will talk about modernity and the scientific revolution. And as we will see, I will talk about how important the scientific revolution was for our worldview as, well, a modern worldview, let's say, whether we subscribe to it or not. So preceding the scientific revolution, we had a period called the that late medieval period in Europe. So my focus today will be on Europe and European history. So in the, say, 500 years leading up to the scientific revolution, something like that, the European worldview was basically governed by two books. One was the Bible, obviously, and the other book was Aristotle and Aristotle's metaphysics. And I also illustrate this with a map, which was basically the world map of the world for 800 years or so in medieval Europe, which shows Jerusalem in the center, Asia, Africa, and Europe. And that was the known world in Europe at the time. So I will come back to this in a little bit, but before I do that, I will not talk about the Bible, but I will focus on explaining what Aristotle's science was, because the scientific revolution was a complete shift on science, and it started with the Aristotelian science and became something else. So to understand the revolution, then we need to understand what was there before modernity. So Aristotelian science, or the metaphysics, as he called it, is based on two things. It's based on causes, 4 causes, and 4 elements, plus 1 element. So the causes are the formal cause. For example, if you look at the cause of a table, it has a shape. That's the formal cause of the table. It has a material. It's made out of wood, for example. So that would be the material cause. Efficient cause would be the tools that the carpenter used to make the table, the hammer and the saw and whatnot, to cause the table to exist. Or if I push the table, that would also be an efficient cause that makes the table move. And the final cause is the purpose. The purpose of the table is a convenient flat surface where you can eat or study or what you want to do on the table, play billiards. Fulfilled its essence or purpose, it has no reason to change or move anymore. So everything strives to where it is natural for it to be, and to be how it is natural for it to be. So there's a God-given natural order in the Aristotelian world. And also natural is good here. There's value attached to natural. So this applies to everything. So a good rock is a rock that falls to the center of the universe. Or a good dog is a dog that behaves as is natural for dogs to behave. And of course, we can deduce what this is by observing how dogs behave in general and say that this is natural for dogs. Acorn has, which is on the picture here, the seed of the oak tree. The acorn has the oak as its purpose. So it contains already its purpose, which is the oak. And then the oak has as its purpose to create more acorns, of course, and grow and spread across the sky. And this applies also to people. So the physics part is inanimate objects, how you apply the 4 causes on inanimate objects. The zoology is applying this on animals or plants also. And then ethics is a study of the causes on humans, so people. So in order to be a good human is to fulfill the human essence, the essence of being human is to be a good human. And Aristotle also very problematically believed that that there's, in the natural order, free men are supposed to philosophize, do politics and arts, while women and slaves are naturally supposed to serve the men. So this was quite abhorrent view on humans that came out of Aristotle's philosophy. And well, you could say that it's, the times of his life, this was the values there, but this was not the only way people saw slaves or women or men at this time. So you can't give him such an easy pass for living a long time ago. So, but anyway, I would like to, with these caveats of some horrible things that Aristotle believed in, it's still very, I would still recommend you to read Aristotle if you get a chance. It's a very good writer, and many of the things he's writing about is very nice also. For example, his take on friendship and so on. Also, just to illustrate a little bit of this philosophy, if you look at the siphon, which we have here on the left, water would go towards the earth. So on the right-hand side, the water is falling down, so that's fine. On the left-hand side, it's not falling down, it's going up. So how do you explain this pressure which is building here with Aristotelian science? Well, you can make a little addendum to it. Aristotle didn't do this, later Christian scientists did, to say that God is present in all things. So therefore, nature abhors a vacuum, emptiness. So emptiness is against the natural order. And therefore, in order to not create a vacuum here, water will go up a little bit before it goes down in the siphon. So if we look at cosmology, which was very important for the scientific revolution, so the cosmology that follows out of Aristotelian metaphysics, which was kind of completed by Ptolemy from Egypt, is that we have the Earth in the center, and then everything rotates again around Earth. So the sun rotates around Earth in this solar sphere here, so it rotates as in perfect circles around Earth. So we have the lunar sphere, and below the lunar sphere is where all life is happening, all the change is happening, all the corruptness of the world is happening here, where things are not in perfect harmony with the cosmos. And around that, we have Mercury, Venus, the Sun, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, all the planets rotating in perfect sphere around the Earth. And then we have the stars, fixed stars around that. So that is the cosmology of from Aristotle until the scientific revolution. So for like 2,000 years, this held up. So if I return then to late medieval Europe, where the Christendom had taken Aristotle to their heart, you can see that this Aristotelian system of essentialism works pretty well for people, because you can always say that in the God-given natural order of things, a king is supposed to be a king. So the king should rule because that is the natural thing for kings to do, while a peasant is supposed to farm because that is the natural thing for a peasant to do. And to try to not farm as a peasant or even try to rule, that goes against the natural order and is therefore not good. So in this time, the scholastics, which were the academics of the time, they worked mostly on developing Aristotle's ideas and logic. He invented logic, after all, Aristotle did. And you can also see how this essentialism also works very well with the Christian notion of a soul, that we have an essence within us, and to be good is to do what's natural for us to do. And this essence doesn't die with us, it's captured by the soul. And it might still seem a bit odd that Aristotle was such an important figure for Christendom, because Aristotle was not Christian. Even he didn't even believe in one God, but he was in ancient Greek religion. So they said that philosophy is to be made the handmaiden of the church. So whenever philosophy is useful for the church, philosophy should be used by the church. But the parts of philosophy which may go against the church will not be allowed. So that was how it was incorporated So this, as I said, was the picture map of the world for 800 years with Jerusalem in the center, which is a bit similar to this map of the cosmos with Earth at its center here. So what happened then in Europe? Well, lots of things happened. So this worldview was basically constant for, I said, 800 years was this map, and maybe for 500 years Aristotle's metaphysics was translated into Latin from Arabic in 1150 or so. So for all these hundreds of years, nothing much changed in the worldview of the Europeans. So many things happen in what is called the Renaissance, which could be one of the most interesting times to be a European in. For example, Johann Gutenberg constructed the printing press, which vastly increased, made it vastly more easy to distribute books around Europe. So you can have one thinker in France writing something down, and it could be read quite promptly by people in rest of the European continent. Gunpowder was started to be used, so cannons. That means that you can't, as a king, just sit and wait for an invasion to subside in your castle, but they can actually break your castle with cannons. So two things that came together from that is that the Ottoman invaded Constantinople using cannons in 1453, and then the scholars in Constantinople, they had lots of ancient writings in Arabic and original Greek. So in early Christian Roman times, most of the ancient writings had been destroyed in Europe, but they were saved by the Arabs. So in the Arabic world, Aristotle and Plato and different ancient Greek thinkers were translated and well read. So when the Ottomans invaded Constantinople, many of these peoples fled into Europe, and they brought these texts with them, which were translated into Latin and then spread with the printing press over Europe. And these texts were the contemporary texts of Aristotle, but they were skeptics. They were skeptical of what Aristotle's ideas were. So they challenged the authority of Aristotle. Other things that happened is that the sea route from Europe to India was opened up in 1488. People went around Africa for the first time, and Columbus returned from the New World, America, in 1493. So they started to hear stories about lands and people and plants and animals which they never heard of before, and which were not described in the true books, not described by Aristotle or in the Bible. So this also started to question the authority of the church, which also is part of the Reformation that began by Martin Luther in Germany in the 1520s. So I have a picture here of chocolate milk. So one thing that happened was, for example, in Europe, is that chocolate was brought in from, or cocoa was brought in from South America, and sugar was brought in from India. And they mixed them with European milk, and they could enjoy a sweet milk chocolate for the first time in the world. So that's just one small example of what's happening at this time. And on top of that, this was a period of health and population growth, because the large Great Plague, the Black Death, subsided in 1350s after killing more than half of the population of Europe. So this was a very prosperous time at the same time as it was a time of all sorts of discoveries which shook the world picture at the time, of the worldview. So this was the backdrop for the scientific revolution. So everyone was basically already primed to question the world and Aristotle's physics. So some people of the scientific revolution, the most famous ones maybe are Copernicus, who, in order to make his astrological calculations and predictions a bit more accurate, suggested that the sun is at the center of the universe and not the earth, and all the planets and fixed stars and everything rotate around the sun and not the earth. his calculations got more accurate that way. Galileo, of course, with the invention of the telescope, which also happened at this time, could look into the cosmos and see lots of things which did not agree with the Aristotelian cosmology. And Isaac Newton also we will talk about. So what did Galileo see when he turned his telescope upwards? Well, he saw mountains on the moon that looks like mountains on the Earth. Of course, this is a bit better resolution than what he had probably, but still you can see it with a telescope like this. Good mountains on the moon, which suggests that the moon is made out of the same material as the Earth. He saw spots on the sun, so the sun would be made out of ether and would be a perfect sphere, but no, he saw spots on it. He saw that Venus had phases, which only works if Venus would be in an orbit around the sun, and that this orbit is inside our orbit. Well, almost. But only works if Venus is in an orbit around the sun. And you never saw the full Venus because it was always hidden behind the sun in this case. And one of the most stark findings was that Jupiter had a little planet system of its own, with the moons circling Jupiter, just like the planets circle the sun. So, or if you are so inclined, the Earth. So that would mean that some celestial object are circling against a different center of the universe. So all of this talks against Aristotelian physics, saying that, suggesting that celestial objects are made out of the same stuff as what we find here on Earth. So Galileo, he wrote his dialogue on the two great world system in 1632, and the two great world systems, of course, are the Ptolemaic or Aristotelian system, which is geocentric, Earth in the center of the universe, and the heliocentric system of Copernicus, with the sun in the center of the universe. So he wrote it as a dialogue, and then he was also good at imagining and doing thought experiments. You could call it to think or imagine about things. He was very good at educating people, so he could, doing a thought experiment, coming up with the idea that two objects would always fall at the same pace. So the Aristotelian notion was that a bigger object contains more Earth, so a bigger rock contains more Earth than a small rock, and would therefore fall to the center of the Earth faster. But he could construct a thought experiment where he connect two rocks with a pole and drop them, and that would either mean that one of them would fall faster than the other, or that the complete thing would fall faster than any of the two separate, and stuff like that. And the legend has it that he climbed the Leaning Tower of Pisa and dropped objects of different size from there to show that they were falling at the same pace. It's probably not true, but it's a nice story. So he created experiments. So when he dropped things, for example, and measured how long it took for things to drop, he could see that the distance things fell had a mathematical relationship. It were related as the natural numbers. So he claimed that the book of nature is written in geometrical characters. So that is also something that goes against Aristotelian physics. And he also, had to prove to people that if he put the telescope and look at objects on the Earth, they will actually be much more accurate than looking with your eyes, and then therefore we can trust the telescope and we'll look into the skies. So he did lots of educational work at the same time as he did a lot of scientific observational work. Very accurate. So the one that took over really after Galileo, if we skip Descartes for a little bit, was Isaac Newton. So he wrote Principia, the philosophy of natural principle of mathematics. Principia in 1687, that was during lockdown. England had a small bout of plague for a few years, so he went to live with his mother on the countryside, and he wrote basically the book of physics that would last for hundreds of years in that lockdown. So no pressure, but that's what he did. So he did what Aristotle thought was impossible. He made numbers move. He invented calculus so that he could formulate Galilean physics in mathematical language. And one thing that Galileo had discovered was that movement and rest, he said, were the same, they were relative. He could imagine himself in a moving ship, a ship that was sailing and doing experiment, dropping balls or whatever. If you sit inside the ship, inside of a closed room in the ship without a window, he would not be able to tell whether the ship was moving or in the harbor, he realized. So Galileo already put movement and rest as equals, which completely goes against Aristotelian physics, where movement is a movement towards a natural state. So this was encapsulated by Isaac Newton in the first law of physics, or the law of inertia, also called, that objects move in straight lines at constant speed unless acted on by a force. And if two objects move at the same speed, they will appear at rest relative to each other. And the second law, of course, tells us how they move away from the straight line if they are acted on by a force. And the third law is the law of action and reaction, which says that if you act with something on a force, it will be acted back on by the same force. And the fourth law is the God-given gravitational force. Remember, Isaac Newton was very much a believer in God. So he basically formulated now physics without cause, or the only cause that remained was the efficient cause. Of course, the material cause was, in Newtonian mechanics, just a matter of mass. So it's only when chemistry comes on the field that the substance of things becomes important again.
Dr. Toll, sorry to disturb you, but just a quick reminder that you have about 5 minutes left.
Okay, very good.
Yeah.
So the most revolutionary thing Galileo and Newton did was to remove the final cause from science, and turning physics then into the first modern science. So just to repeat a little bit, what are the difference between the modern and the pre-modern sciences? I would call pre-modern, particularly I call it prejudicial, that things are as they appear to be. The sun appears to be circling the earth, and the sun appears to be very different from the earth, a celestial object, or things, horses appear to enjoy running on the fields and eating grass, so therefore that is good for a horse to do that. While modern physics or science is preposterous. We can come up with preposterous idea and then deduce mathematically results from them and come up with, and then compare the results with nature and see if they works. So we can go against our prejudices in modern physics and find something completely different, or in modern science. As I said, numbers do not change, and nature is changed, so maths cannot describe nature in the pre-modern, while in the modern we have calculus, which is the mathematics of change. So it's actually quite weird that we combine the eternal and infinite mathematics with the concrete and finite in the material world, and it works. It works really well. So this is also something I should emphasize about Newtonian physics, is that it really works. Rest and movement are relative in the modern, while in the pre-modern it's very different. And one big thing is that in the pre-modern you're concerned with the natural order of things, and God's given natural order. So the scientist basically observes nature and natural phenomena in the natural environment, and that is how you learn about the book of nature. While in the modern world, we impose ourselves onto nature with experiments and measurements, where we take things out of the natural environment and do isolated experiments on them. So this is a very different method. And I said there's no final cause in the modern. So let's linger a little bit on that. What does it mean to be in a world without final cause, without a God-given natural order? So in the pre-modern world, we have a final cause, and God is present in everything, and everything is to God's will. So the final cause is that everything has a good and natural place to be and strive to be that, or be there in a God-given natural order. So here we have no separation between natural and supernatural, and every object gets some sort of subjectivity. While in the modern world, we have no separation between cosmos and earth. We brought cosmos to earth and earth into the cosmos. And we have a separation now between the natural and the supernatural. The natural world is different from the supernatural world. We have a separation then between theology and physics. There's no God-given natural order, so where does the authority of the Pope and kings come from, if that is the case? When you can't say that the purpose of a king is to rule anymore, because the king is no different from any other human, or any peasant or other human. So the purpose of a peasant may not be to farm anymore. If you're born a peasant, doesn't mean you have to stay a peasant. And there is, though, one strange thing is that we have a world of objects, and we are the only subjects left in this world of objects. So nature has it's not imbued with God in the same way as before. They don't have a natural order, so we can use the objects of nature as tools. But at the same time, it makes us very different from the world around us, because then we are the only subjects left in this world of objects. So that poses the big questions of what does it mean to be human? And if natural is not good, what is good? And science then became a project. So this time in European history change was happening very fast. So each generation was living in a different world, had a different worldview than the previous generation. So each generation of scientists rendered the previous generation basically ignorant by comparison. So that imbues the modern world as with the concept of progress, that progress is always happening, and that change is progress and change is good. So change is always happening, and it's always progress. So change within the dominant worldview is so rapid in modernity that each generation grows up under tangibly different circumstances. The notion that change implies progress, and that progress is inevitable. Not only that, it's also good. And that there's no final cause, so there's no essentialism in the modern worldview, which, of course, each generation has to grapple with, go against their prejudice. So the modern world then can be described by a combination of projects. Just like science is a project of understanding nature, which is always progressing. Each answer yields new questions which you can pose to nature in new experiments, which yields new questions, and so on. A never-ending project of progress. Engineering would also be something that comes out of this. So now that nature is consisting of objects and not imbued with spirit in the same way we can turn a tree into planks without thinking about it. So engineering then would be a project of turning nature into tools. Just as capitalism is a project of turning nature into capital, things you can own and trade. And colonialism and imperialism would be modernizing the world then, because they would see it as Europe is progressing so much. So the rest of the world, which is not modern, must be unchanging all the time, and therefore it's our imperative to change it. But of course, that's complete nonsense. Colonialism and imperialism was only used by capitalism really to oppress and exert resources from the rest of the world. And the nation state came up as a project a bit later, creating this notion of the citizen the only essence of the citizen is the belonging to their nation state. And this is also the vessel of the institutions of modernity, the institutions of capitalism, engineering, science, colonialism, and humanism, which is trying to answer the question of what is good and what is human in this modern world, which, of course, these questions are not been answered, but they are still in the project of being answered. So this is the humanist project on modernity. That's all I wanted to say. Sorry if I went over time a little bit. I just recommend these two books if you're interested in learning more about the scientific revolution. One by Steve Chapin, which was on the first slide of mine, and Hannah Arendt has this wonderful book called The Human Condition. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Toll, for that illuminating talk. We'll just request the audience to keep all questions till the end. We'll be taking the entire Q&A after our second speaker. Can I now invite Vanshika to quickly introduce our second speaker, Dr. Asijit Datta.
Dr. Asijit Datta is currently working as Assistant Professor and Head of English at the Heritage College under Calcutta University. He has also taught at Presidency University, Vidyasagar University, Ramakrishna Mission, Narendrapur, and Bethune College. He completed his Masters in English from Presidency College in 2009. He received his PhD from the Department of Film Studies, Jadavpur University in 2017. His thesis attempted to locate the vanishing subjects in Ingmar Bergman and Samuel Beckett. His academic interests pertain to post-humanism, Beckett studies, modern European theatre, world cinema, and psychoanalysis. He has written and directed critically acclaimed and award-winning plays like Chairs, My Life as I, The Fortress of Men, and Jato. He also has multiple academic papers published on Beckett, disability studies, and film criticism in reputed books and national and international journals. We welcome you, sir.
Yeah, am I audible? I think I'm audible, right? Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so I would like to begin by thanking the St. Mary College for having me here, and also Jennifer and Anisha and Samira for and also all of them associated with the event. I should begin right away because I think I have just 30 minutes. I will speak on waste, and I shouldn't waste any more time. Hello everyone. My task today would be primarily to confuse you, because that is I will just share the confusion that I perpetually suffer from while encountering waste. So what I'll try in this talk is try to open, the vast field of waste studies for you without arriving at anything, because you're so surrounded by waste all the time that we can't get out of it that way. Neither the studies and not the actual material waste that is constantly generated around us. So we all need to be, scavengers and find our valuables in the garbage heap. So to speak. So right from waste as material substances to the waste of memories, what is waste? That is the first question, I mean, the laptop I'm using right now will be waste maybe in 1 or 2 years, right? So the first thing to occupy an unused house, let's say, is dust. So the dust of memories and existences leave behind, right? Even that is waste, right? So our memories then, therefore, waste products. Do we have waste inside our bodies? Because, of course, it is inside and it's flushed out, literally, right? But what about that which is not flushed out, right? So our memories, waste products, can waste be always seen? Can garbage be always visible? So is the greatest garbage, is let's say the greatest garbage heap, is it our unconscious, the one explained by Freud? And the greatest problem we are facing during the pandemic is perhaps our dead bodies garbage, right? Because what the president of Brazil is doing, let's say he's hiding data. What right now is happening in West Bengal, that we are not, tests are not, properly done. We are not getting the proper numbers because, of course, the election is very near, right? And perhaps there will be a lockdown after the elections are over. So So we are in a state where dead bodies themselves are disposed of. The family members are not always allowed to see the dead bodies, and they're burnt somewhere along the garden, because it's not far from my house, where they secretly burn the dead bodies, and it's really an open secret. They arrive at 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock at night, and it's near the garbage heap where they burn the dead bodies, right? So it is literally the humans who create waste are actually wasted there. They're burnt there. So let's enter our discussion regarding garbage. So what is, modern life, let's say, destroys the past. It is this inherent quality in modern life that it destroys the past and builds on its inherent outdatedness, right? So for example, let's go to September 11, 2001, World Trade Center, the tragedy. So what happens a year later, an exhibition opens at the Smithsonian Museum, right? And it continues till 2004 for 3 years. And they name the exhibition Bearing Witness to History, And what does it do? It displays artifacts and associated stories, photographs, documents, and all the events, scattered events, of course, related to 9/11. So what were they? They were a battered wallet sometimes, a melted computer screen, torn clothing, maybe a structural joint from the World Trade Center, a window washer's handle, right? A stairwell sign, as well as artifacts associated with the aftermath, like coins and artwork and patriotic ribbons and rescue equipment. So you understand what was some kind of rubble, what was complete garbage, comes to museum. So we are definitely entering into the field of archaeology. Okay, and this is the archaeological metamorphosis. So what we'll try to do here in the talk, in this discussion, is understand the value of a waste. That it has always been to us ideologically, conventionally, valueless. Okay, so we'll try to assign some kind of value, some kind of concreteness, and some kind of philosophy to the waste that we continuously encounter or we do not encounter. Because the amount of waste we do encounter is or has no relation perhaps to the amount of waste that we do not encounter, because the less we see, the more there is. So of course, the city is clean because the margins are unclean, because the margins are the garbage heap, because there is an assigned place where you shall not go, as if. So what happens due to this archaeological metamorphosis, due to these, due to these discarded items, bombed items, sometimes destroyed by terrorism, right? What happens when they become allegorical, right? So this is a question of what stuff to keep. That is a question of conservation, of value, of choice. So this is profoundly an archaeological question. Now, the problem with this thing is that 99% or more of what most archaeologists dig up, record, analyze in obsessive detail is what people in the past have thrown away as worthless, or have been incidental outcomes. For example, natural death, that has become fossil, for example, the death of dinosaurs, or excess food, which gets dropped or deposited or thrown away, was thrown away in the past, is now dug up. And read as archaeological material, but then all of it was disposed of, so to say, was thrown away. So what was garbage then is valuable material now, right? And what is garbage now perhaps will be valuable material 100, 200, or 1,000 years later, when the machines will dig it up, perhaps. So let's say broken ceramics, broken or dull stone tools, tool making debitage, food making debris, broken glass, rusted metal, and on and on and on. So, but if you ask the archaeologists, and that is the paradox with the archaeologists, perhaps. The paradox is the archaeologists will mention the term past, they will mention the term artifacts, they will mention the term behavior, attitudes, beliefs, but they will never mention the term garbage or refuse or trash. or junk. They will never, as if what you find after digging is a valuable artifact. But it might not be, right? Because what you unearth, not everything is clear, usable. What you unearth is also disposed of. Not everything is used in the archaeological laboratory, so to say. But what is thrown away after the digging up is not referred to as garbage or trash or junk or refuse, right? For example, a huge field of studies is also regarding exoarchaeology, space junk, right? Because we have already launched around 10,000 resident space objects into space, and there are urine bags and other kind of junk which poses major threat to any sort of rockets which would go from go from Earth to a mission. There's always a risk of encounter the space junk and destroying itself. So how are we defining garbage? Let's say so we are broadly defining garbage as a ruin, remains, discard, decay, hygiene. What is not hygienic? Okay, dirt and disease, litter, trash, junk. Now, the quantity and quality of the visible, as I said, is directly proportional to the quantity of invisibility, right? Now, what is extremely interesting is, since we were children, we have continuously heard this thing that do not go near the garbage. It's disease. Firstly, we have to get out of this confusion or of this belief that garbage means disease. Because it is a very late 19th century rationale for cleaning garbage out of streets, and it was based on the theory of miasma. And miasma means, of course, that vapors from filth and refuse were causes of infection. That's what they believed in 19th century, right? Miasma. And with the arrival of germ theory, of course, miasma theory fell away, right? So garbage is not hygienic, of course, but it is not drastically depopulating cities or responsible for diseases. But it has always, the concept of immaculate cleanliness lingered on. And I don't know how political I can be here in front of you. But imagine, imagine the drive Swachh Bharat, right? What is cleanliness? What are you cleaning? Has become such an important issue, right? But it has all been done very in a very manipulative way. Okay, maneuvering your understanding to garbage. That we are cleaning. We are building shauchalaya, right? We are saving the women. But what is actually happening is they're building detention centers, right? So they are cleaning a different kind of waste, where waste is not what people generate. Waste is not excess, but waste is people themselves, right? What if we borrow it from Agamben, what Agamben calls bare bodies? So what the government is trying to do is move away wasted people from our sites. Who would want to look at a particular community with let's say 5 children and walking the road? I would not want it, in a sense, right? Or the government says you should not want it because they are eating up your job, your health, your space, etc., etc. So it is a very in a very manipulative way they have converted garbage into people. So that is extremely important, and that is why waste studies, I think personally, fits India so well, not just because of the amount of waste we generate in a city, in a village, or everywhere, but it's also because in India, because of the caste and primarily of the caste and religious differences, what is being generated, the concept of other, because garbage has always been the other, right? So what is being generated in the name of waste is really, wasted bodies. if I linger on this a little bit, what Arjuna Padurai says in a very famous book. It's called The Future as a Cultural Fact. I think it came out in 2013, where he talks about the Dalits who go into garbage picking, who go down the manhole to dig up what is there, right, and not some archaeological digging up, but taking out the waste, cleaning what other people throw there, right? Arjuna Padurai says they are the brutal remainders of neoliberalism, right? But the question is how to get rid of this visual garbage. How many times do you really encounter this Dalit man going down and coming up, completely drenched in the black water, black mud? How many times do you do that? And the point is, what do you do when you look at this visual garbage, right? Do you keep looking? Do you turn your face away? Do you think why is he there? Why a particular person from a particular caste is there and not someone from your caste, let's say? So in what ways should the government undertake this let's say stitching process on the skin of its cultivated roads? Because on the roads you do not see them, right? So the road is clean, and the first thing we say, and it's so inbred in us, the first thing we say when we enter a city is that, oh wow, the roads are so clean. The roads are clean because some kind of cleaning process has been done at night, and not in the presence of ice, not in the presence of people. I remember something happened in Calcutta, I think 5 or 6 years back. And it's true for every city, by the way. It happened 5 or 6 years back. I think there is something, it's a place called Salt Lake Stadium, okay? It's a stadium and it's called Salt Lake Stadium because it's in Salt Lake. So there was a kind of international tournament, a football tournament, which was supposed to take place that day. And we remember so distinctly, overnight, the entire basti around the area was cleaned up. Another question was, of course, where did those people go? And no one had any idea where they went, right? The basic problem with this is that we were not informed, but everyone kept praising how clean the roads were after that. And the people would come from outside and they would look at a very fresh and very clean and tidy Kolkata, right? So therefore efforts are taken, plans framed and maps charted to safeguard this conceptual hygienic space. It is all about concept, right? What you understand by hygiene. So imagine people living in guarded communities, right? There are guards at the gates. There is scanning, there is frisking, there is inquiring, telephoning, verifying, rejecting, arranging, conciliating. You're not allowed to enter if you're not wearing a particular attire. And they are continuously your attempts to live at a distance, to steer away from this kind of visual garbage, to not let those people with those clothes, with that odor enter or come close to you, okay, or enter that zone, that sancto sanctorum, right, which belongs to that middle class, upper middle class space. So again, it is primarily where we live and where we do not want to live. It is the waste we discard, and by discarding that waste, we built our own kingdom, which is so clean and so beautiful, like this white marble in your bathroom, which makes it a point to be clean, because washroom is not supposed to be a clean space. So white marble as it reflects how clean your bathroom is, right? So we keep encountering this thing that this phrase or the sentence that the planet is full. Okay, it comes in political science, it comes in social sciences, that the planet is full, and it slowly signals a disappearance of the no man's land. Right, there are no lands left as if. So why so much in modern history? Because modern history played the crucial role of dumping grounds for the human waste turned out in ever rising volumes, and that led to a kind of modernization, again a very conceptual modernization. So right, and the production of human waste is more correctly of, as I said, of wasted humans. Humans who are excessive, redundant. That is the population of those who either could not or were not wished to be recognized or allowed to stay. And we are facing, just before the pandemic, we had the Shaheen Bagh, right? So we know what we are looking at. We are looking at a kind of people. I can go to the extent of calling them a species. I'm sorry, because that's how the government is telling us to view them. But a kind of people who are fighting to be not redundant, who are trying to be significant, who are trying to say that we value, we matter, we have contributed in making this country what it is. So again, they are trying to continuously say that we are not garbage. We are not waste. Don't throw us in that mountain heap. Do not do that. In the dunghill. Do not do that. And of course, the pandemic came and everything was, So this garbage creation is the inescapable side effect of order building. Of economic progress, so to say. So separation and destruction of waste was to be the, trade secret of modern creation. Where are you hiding your junk? Is perhaps the greatest question of capitalism, right? Where are you hiding your junk? What are you doing with the excess labor? What are you doing to your labors? What are you doing to the machines? What are you doing to the forest? What are you doing to the available sources? And what is taken? What is wasted, etc., etc. We have to look at modernism, by its very definition, that it is waste generating, and the modern mind was born together with the idea that the world can be changed. Okay.
Sorry to disturb you. You have 5 minutes.
Okay, sure, 5 minutes, no problem. So the modern way of being consists in compulsive, obsessive change, in the refutation of what there is and what there should be. It is literally a rebellion against the sameness, right? So modern history has therefore been a history of designing a museum or a graveyard of designs tried, used up, rejected, and abandoned in the ongoing war of conquest or attrition waged against nature. I will just, I don't have time to go into Beckett, but I will try to end with two very potent examples. One is, of course, I remember right now, it was this book by Milan Kundera. It's called the Unbearable Lightness of Being, where Milan Kundera talks about. I don't know how many of you read it, but it's such a life-changing book where Milan Kundera talks about Stalin's illegitimate son Yakov Zhugashvili, I think his name was, or Zhugashvili, who fell prisoner to the Germans, and it's a brilliant part actually, where he was, of course, the illegitimate son, and what happened in the camps was for the prisoners. There was this, I don't know how many have seen, there was this uppish pulpit, and there were holes, and they had to literally shit there, all of them together. And of course, people started complaining of the smell of Yakov's waste. Okay, because it was a public toilet and everyone could smell Yakov that way, and they started complaining of Yakov's waste. And Yakov went to the German officers and he said that I'm Stalin's son and I need a separate space, a separate toilet for myself. And of course, the Germans made fun of him because he was of course Stalin's illegitimate son. And there was this part where in order to escape, Yakov tried to jump over the fence, and of course he was electrocuted and killed, right? And Milan Kundera writes that this was a man who died because he was divine shit. Okay, because Stalin was divine and this man was divine shit. Okay, and then Kundera goes on to show that how under our civilized societies, how under our well-built furnished houses, water runs underneath. is nothing but tunnels of shit, tunnels of garbage, tunnels of waste products, our own waste. So literally, our entire civilization technically stands on shit. Right, stands on waste. The last thing I remember, which I should tell you, right, because it is always about, the nation always talks about, those who belong are useful and those who do not belong are garbage or useless, and they have been Jews, Muslims, Dalits, and all of them have been seen as waste. So what is useful, what is legitimate, and what is illegitimate? I would try to end with the garbage that history generates, and I remember, and I would urge you to see this film by Alerono. It's called Night and Fog, where it's a documentary footage. I mean, it has documentary footages and long scenes on what happened during the Holocaust. And there's these two scenes which I'll never forget. Which is it shows this huge empty hall. It's a massive empty hall which is full of human hair. And then there are scenes where soldiers are carrying the heads of Jews and their bodies, but the point is something else. The point is the hair was made into bags. Okay, so that's where cheap labor, okay, or cheap materials come from. It's free, right? It comes from the Jews. It was Jewish bags, and it was sold into the German market. Okay, and the skin of the Jews was used for soaps. Okay, and that was again sold in the German market, and people were using it, literally garbage, and they were using as products and buying them, right? And that is something which should force us to think the temporal nature that is associated with garbage, and that's how I will try to end this talk. That waste is often found to be between something and nothing, between presence and disappearance, and here lies the fundamental transitional property of being waste, so to say. So there is always a before and always an after for the waste. Before it was useful, then it became waste, and then will it be used, will it be discarded, can be recycled, and things like that. So there is always this temporal nature associated with waste. And for example, modern electronics, clothing, transportation, ornament, fuel, buildings. So they're not expected to fall that way, they do not fall, right? But think of a shoe, think of a shirt you're wearing, think of your hair, right? Everything becomes garbage. But that's why there is this inherent tendency, perhaps, in man to create things. And man completely, constantly fails, of course, has always failed, will always fail, to create things which would not be garbage. That's why there is this constant tendency of modernity is this nostalgia that, if the past could be preserved and things like that, if we could retrieve some material from the past and we could recognize the past and that way. But it also discards the past constantly, right? So I think personally, mankind's motive has been throughout history, and especially in modernity, is to create something which does not convert into waste, right? And I always get fascinated by what Claire Goldbrook once said, or what she wrote in her book, that the problem of extinction is the only philosophical problem that we are facing now. And what will happen if we are extinct? What if we are extinct? We will all ourselves become garbage. We will become fossils. But the problem that Goldbrook says, that there will be no one to unearth that fossil, right? So mankind has to imagine himself as garbage, as a future where he will not be there, and try to act in the present. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Datta. That was very insightful. We are sorry for rushing you. So we are hard pressed for time, but we would like to take a couple of questions for our speakers. Okay, the floor is now open for questions. Audience, please virtually raise your hand using the Google Meet feature, or alternatively, you can also post the question in the chat box and I'll read it for you. Questions, audience? Okay, we have a first question. Okay, this is addressed to Dr. Datta. Dania is asking if you could briefly take us through one application of the idea of waste in Beckett.
For example, I remember right now, thank you for your question, by the way. I remember right now, of course, I wanted to speak about Endgame, where Nag and Nell, the parents, literally live in the ash cans, and they continue to talk about the past, how beautiful it was in the past. They try to kiss, but they can't because they are, of course, in their ash bins. And there is Ham, who can't stand and who is blind, and there is Clov, who can't sit. And they are everybody is is a part of this disabled universe, right? And they themselves are disabled. And so this is directly Beckett saying, and there's very, very less research on this. You can look it up. Hardly anything on this, any articles on this. This is literally Beckett telling you that the body as garbage. The disabled body as garbage. What do you do when the body is wasting away is one of the most unnerving ethical questions in Beckett. What do you do with a body that is turning into garbage very slowly? And the most profound example is perhaps from Happy Days, where you have a character like Winnie, who is half immersed, under earth, and all she does day and night is she brushes her teeth, she polishes her nails, she looks into the mirror, she applies lipstick, adjusts her hat, rummages in her bag, examines tube, inspects teeth in the mirror, wipes finger on grass, examines handle of brush, and all she does is to stop the thought. She plays with garbage as if to stop the thought that she is being wasted away, to stop the thought that she is slowly getting submerged into the earth, because the next scene is Winnie is submerged till the neck. Okay, so it is all over. Garbage is all over Beckett, but primarily, which is more complex in Beckett, is garbage. It is the garbage of language which is there in Beckett. Okay, it is continuously excess language which prohibits people from dying. From populating the it just populates the silence. So there is this continuous urge in Beckettian characters to speak, but also to reach towards silence by exhausting language. So we are also looking at the garbage of language, or garbage as language. I hope I've answered your question a little bit.
Okay, we have next question for Dr. Toll. Davis Mehta is asking, what was the impact of modern science on ethics and the purpose of humanity?
Yes, well, if you look in philosophy, the impact was enormous. After Newton came Hume and Kant, and everything in philosophy has been trying to grapple with these ideas of modern science and what it means to be human. So that's basically a philosophy 101 course to answer that question. But I think the implications is what I said, is that the modern science really removed the final cause from science, and did so extremely successfully. It could really describe the natural world without prejudice, which is inherent in the final cause. So that is the big impact. Since it's been so successful in science, it should also be removed from other parts of our world, or how we view the world. So I think that would be my short answer. Thanks for the question.
Okay, Dr. Toll, we have another question for you. This is by Bhumika. She's asking you to comment a little on the impact of modern science on the organization of society, since you mentioned the same with regard to Aristotle.
Okay, yeah, thank you. That's it's a big question, so I would have to speculate a little bit. But of course, science has stood as a inspiration for early modernity, at least for how how to think about the world. So engineering, for example, has come out of science, and as I mentioned very briefly, engineering, of course, is very different from science in many respects, but it draws from science, and this has also impacted then how we organize society. For example, if we return to waste and garbage, we organize society in a way now which is not really sustainable, not really in resonance with nature, because we don't really see ourselves as part of nature anymore after this scientific revolution. So that would be one way which it has impacted how we organize society in garbage-producing way, for example. But it's a very complex question because, as I tried to point out also, the scientific revolution was not happening in a vacuum. Everything was happening at the same time, which brought along these changes, and different things that changed at this time also affected each other. So it's a very complex question. So we can't give science too much credit for how modernity has happened and society has been formed.
Okay. Okay. Jennifer, do you wish to speak? Okay, I thought you raised your hand, right?
I did. You can let the students ask first, and then I can ask.
All right. We have another question for Dr. Datta. This is by Vanilla. She's asking that you've mentioned the class angle of waste, garbage, and cleanliness. There is also caste implication in India, in this idea. Could you comment a little on this?
Yeah, thank you, Vanilla, for your question. I think I did mention caste a little bit, but I think it's a bigger problem than class, at least in India. You just need to be alert on your independent news channels, not the ones who are dependent on political parties, but the independent ones. If you just look at them, it is always that kind of problem, that kind of disgust regarding reservation, or the problem regarding one person who perhaps made it big, belonging to the Dalit community and made it big, and then we look at them and say, oh, but why do they need reservation? Okay, because he already has everything, But of course, it's a problem that we refuse to accept, that the history of waste that we have associated, that our forefathers have associated with the problem of caste, with people belonging to the caste, is or cannot so easily be washed away, right? So there is the continuous tendency, you look at Brahmin matrimony. There is something called Kshatriya matrimony. There is something called, for IITians, there is a matrimony. Have you ever seen a Dalit matrimony? I mean, why isn't there a Dalit matrimony? Why isn't, or should there be a Dalit matrimony? Should there be a Brahmin matrimony? Should there be, any sort of mentioning that this is the horoscope and this is the caste and creed we need a bride or the groom from? Look at the films. Look at our films. If Hindi film industry is the biggest industry that there is, how many films? When was the last time you saw a film on caste? Again, Article 15 had its own problems because it had a Brahmin savior. You need films like Periyarum Perumal, okay, the Tamil film. You have great films coming down from Tamil and Malayalam, great films coming down. So of course, we are facing such a problem with caste. That's a huge area. Thank you for your question.
Okay. We have another question for Dr. Toll. This is by Jolene. She's asking, how do scientific principles and Christianity come together in Newton's understanding of the world?
All right, thank you. That is, okay, so the way I think, if I understand it correctly, the way Newton and his contemporaries saw it is that nature is basically a book written by God. So by unraveling the mysteries of nature, you actually read something that is created by God. The creation, nature, is created by God. So a scientist's work is to unravel what God has created. So that is part of how they understand their role in the Christian world. And also, if we look at it theologically at this time, which actually started already with the invention of clockwork before Newton, is that the idea of a clockwork universe that was once primed by the Creator and then the clockwork universe runs by itself, as it was once set up to do by God, without necessarily the creation in any of these cases being imbued by God, which was more the pre-modern idea. That, yeah, I think that.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Toll. Jennifer, would you like to go ahead with your question?
No, it's just an observation of sorts, which combines both the speakers and the wonderful talks. So when you're speaking in terms of science, and when you're speaking in terms of the scientific revolution and modernity, and when you're speaking in terms of the garbage and modernity, I was wondering, like, how would you think of the questions of recycling and artificial intelligence of some sort, because what happens to waste, and how is science compiling all of that, in modern society? So, I mean, if anyone or both, if you could address this.
Dr. Datta, you're muted.
Unmute yourself.
Okay. So, let me begin by answering this question. Thank you, Jennifer, for your question. I think the problem is not with recycling. The problem is with the fact of denial, that we deny that it's there, that we deny that it is so close to us. There is continuous effort to hide away garbage, to conceal garbage. So the problem is with that. But recycling, of course, it's something which drives us. But also it reminds me of Donna Haraway, and Haraway is saying she is looking at human beings as compost. So not just anything else, but we ourselves become compost. So we are already in a post-human phase where we are looking at ourselves, as dead, and our body contributing to nature and human beings at large. So the problem is not with recycling; it is more about the concept of garbage and how we use it or extend it to people, to things, and to everything around us. To a mad person, he's speaking nonsense, we say. Or when we were children, if we uttered an expletive, our parents would say, your mouth is a garbage. That words, language itself has been everything. In fact, has been differentiated between the sanitized and the unsanitized, between the hygienic and the non-hygienic, and that is the problem, I think.
And by artificial intelligence, I was referring to the idea that when you spoke of the idea of the future being always a kind of garbage of the past and the present, So when you are replacing memory of sorts, with some kind of artificial intelligence, So how are you looking at that? Are we then replacing memory with scientific revolution of some sort?
Yeah. So as we speak right now, there is an Arizona foundation which is known as Alcor Foundation, which I think, if I remember correctly, they are charging $50,000 to deposit your dead body. So after you die, you stay safe in a sort of sub-zero temperature. It's called 0K temperature. You stay there and you wait for a future technology to revive you, to come back to life. But the point is not that they will restore your memories and things like that. The problem is with adjustment. Will your consciousness in 2020 fit the consciousness of you in, let's say, 2020? That is the problem. That body, there is a continuous denial of this body being wasted away, or of the body being turned into garbage. So rather, what we do, we would store it, right? Those who have money will store it. Will stop the body from putrefying.
Thank you so much.
Sandhya, do you have a question?
Yeah, just taking off on Jennifer's question as well, and the talks, both of your talks, which were fabulous. I think maybe we could bring back the question of what kind of waste we're talking about, and to give it a certain kind of specificity, and which was brought in by the question on caste. But also the fact that there are certain, and Tobias, when you were talking about, let's say, colonialism and the kind of transformation of nature that is essentialized in certain kinds of bodies in order to become a certain kind of labor for non-essentialized subjectivities elsewhere. So black bodies, oriental bodies, which are essentialized forms of labor, and in a way, waste or whatever, the detritus of the world, being used in a sense of, used as labor for the prime movers of the world who are subjects now, and who no longer or who have perhaps kind of transcended that Cartesian split between body and mind. And so, of course, there is a sense in which there are certain parts of the world which are still not part of the mind and are still very much essentialized as body, and therefore being considered disposable, and where they are in service, or they service the first world, let's say, and which is then considered of far more technological, scientific kind of subjectivity, and therefore far more important to the world, to the functioning of the world, and where all of that labor is, of course, completely hidden, erased, invisibilized, all of that. I'm including women as well in this, and all kinds of caste labor, race labor, all of that. Maybe, if you would just like to comment on that, both of you.
Okay. Yeah, Dr. Tobias, I guess you can go.
Okay. Yeah, no, I think that is maybe basically the most important question we should ask ourselves, is the question of social justice and what the implications of our worldview is, of the modern worldview is on social justice. Also, what we have to grapple with then is this universal ideas of modernity and human values and human nature versus less universal ideas on what makes us different at the same time. But yeah, I think this is really the cusp of it. Is what we need to. This is the consequence of when we say that, okay, we live in a world where there is no destiny, no essentialism. Then what is the consequences of that? Well, just because you are born in a certain caste or class or something like that, that doesn't mean that this is your purpose in life. This is not your destiny anymore. So I think this is the consequences of this, which have, well, we obviously failed to realize this in the last hundreds of years, and we will probably continue to fail realizing this in the coming years also. But this is the big question of social justice.
So also, I just, sorry to butt in, just that a certain kind of nature is essentialized and then made disposable, and replaceable. Again, women's labor, caste labor, So certain kind of human or certain kind of nature is made. It is transformed into something of an essential project or nature, and then discarded. So it is how do we? And when we talk of AI or AGI, who will then be the subjects of, let's say, AGI, is also a question that we should be asking.
Yeah, I think. Thank you, Sandhya, for your observation. I think that's the greatest problem. I think the more I'm reading about waste, the more I'm getting confused, because in our consumer culture, everything comes with a kind of use value, and the more we are buying, we know that a kind of it has. The first thing we check is an expiry date. That it will be wasted very soon. I think that is the problem with waste, that it cannot be denoted, pinpointed, or defined that way, because we're surrounded by it. The entire point of gerontology, the entire point of age studies is not to look at the body as something which is getting wasted. That old people, of course, are have a new lease of life, they have experience, you praise them. It's just a way of seeing. Of course, it is important. I'm not saying it's not important, but it's also sort of consolation to not look at your body as something which is already gone, or which is almost constantly going. Right? It's going. So I think you're right. I mean, the problem of assigning waste is perhaps the greatest problem, and that therefore it is a very easy tool in the hands of the government to play with. Because whatever they say, waste is waste. You don't really have to talk about the women, going to the fields and getting raped. You just can say because this place is dirty, and I, as a person, would want to clean it. We would not support it because we all hate dirt. The first thing which, at least in my house, the first thing my mother asks every day, how is there so much dust? How can there be dust in a place where people live? We are so averse to the idea of garbage or waste and us staying together. I think that is the problem we need to think about.
If we go back also to the question with artificial intelligence in relation to this, is that it's a very tempting promise. If we can create artificial people, then we don't have to grapple with these ideas of whether they are waste or not, because they're obviously not us. So we can treat them, abuse them as ever we want. And, that is also, I guess, a consequence of this.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I think we had a great session, and this is never ending because it's so intriguing. So, yeah, thank you so much, both of you.
Yeah, thanks,
Anisha.
It was great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you so much, Dr. Toll and Dr. Datta. We'll officially bring today's series to a close now. Can I please invite our student president of ELA, Dania, to give the vote of thanks?
On behalf of the English Literary Association, Department of English, Jesus and Mary College, I would like to first and foremost thank both our esteemed speakers, Dr. Tobias Toll and Dr. Sujit Datta, for dedicating their time and energy into making this such an intellectually stimulating session. We are also grateful to our principal, Dr. Sandra Joseph Ma'am, for lending her support and encouragement to this endeavor. Furthermore, we would like to thank Sister Dr. Rosalie for gracing the occasion with her presence and blessings. The organization of this lecture series would not have been possible without the inputs and guidance of our teacher in charge, Dolly Ma'am, faculty members in the department, Jennifer Ma'am and Sandhya Ma'am, as well as our ELA staff advisors, Samira Ma'am and Anisha Ma'am. Thank you to you all. Next, we would like to acknowledge the hard work and dedication of the IT department of our college, JMC, especially Gaurav sir, whose expertise made today logistically seamless. This vote of thanks would be incomplete without giving special commendation to our ELA core team, who worked tirelessly on different duties to make the lecture series successful. A round of applause for you all. Finally, we would like to end by expressing our gratitude to the entire Department of English, the teachers and the students, as well as our enthusiastic audience for joining in this virtual session and making it interactive. Your presence and questions enlivened us all. Thank you once again for today. We shall see you tomorrow at 11:30 a.m. for our next two sessions on the contemporary in culture. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you, everyone. You can start leaving the meet now.
Thank you.
And our two esteemed speakers are very welcome to join tomorrow as well.
Yeah,
absolutely. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Box, all the students are quite happy and enthusiastic. Thank you. Bye. Bye. Take care.
Bye.